given that the story I'm about to talk about is actually, well, it sort of originated at the heart of New Labour. And so let me see. I find that human beings are generally compassionate people. They are empathetic towards the suffering of others, including bereavement. And yet, for some reason, there's a British TV presenter who has experienced both in recent times, and yet the response to her is overwhelmingly negative. I'm talking about Good Morning Britain's Kate Garraway, whose husband Derek, we were told, developed COVID, then long COVID, and after several years, died recently. Yesterday, Kate was in her seat at Good Morning Britain talking about another Derek documentary that her employers, ITV, are set to release on March 26. Now, a fair amount of people contacted me yesterday about it, almost all, without exception, using expressions like she's exploiting him again or she's milking it, and even she acts like her husband was the only one to fall ill and for her to be widowed. Seems uncaring, right? Are we really that cruel? The problem is, and it is a problem, Kate Garraway and her husband, Derek Draper, were used throughout COVID to propagandize against the rest of us. And when people have been the target of a state-sanctioned psyop that sought to separate us from our loved ones and demonize us, and there's a TV personality who seems to be a figurehead for such things, well, people don't forget that in a hurry. In fact, one person that I follow on X, good morning to you, Edward, I'm going to quote your tweet about this announcement of another documentary. Edward wrote, at this point, even ITV should be able to read the room, that the public are utterly fed up of hearing about this. The fact that they don't care and go ahead anyway is very, very revealing. And it is indeed. Kate pushed that COVID narrative like her life and her next documentary depended on it. There is no doubt that Derek's illness and Kate's hunger to constantly promote it supported the draconian and totalitarian government narrative, and people are not dealing with it. They're not having it. So yesterday, that announcement, as I say, of another documentary about her husband really angered people. Comments on social media were almost largely negative. Some background. Throughout COVID, Derek Draper was pushed on people as an example of how dangerous and life-threatening COVID was. Many disputed he even had COVID and suggested his symptoms were more akin to someone having had a stroke. They were, together, major COVID narrative pushers. And there were also other issues that really unsettled me, just from a humane perspective. And that is, we saw him in all states of distress. And I just wondered, how moral and how ethical is that? How consenting can a man be when he appears to be at some stages almost comatized, and there are cameras trained on him? So I had lots of issues with that for a start. Kate suggested in her interview yesterday, it was actually Derek who decided and made a decision to do another documentary. She said it was 90% done before he died. And, the problem is people are also reacting so negatively because something has always felt really off about Derek Draper's health battles, and well, it's not even just a significant attention, it was everything. They were literally front and center of the COVID narrative war. And really, truly, his struggles were absolutely used by the government, by media, to promote the COVID narrative and the pandemic, yes. And people do feel that Kate Garraway has exploited her husband, that she has appeared to delight in the increased attention. For those who don't know, Derek Draper has a political background, by the way. He was a long time part of the political establishment. He was known as a ruthless political operator. He worked for Tony Blair. And in fact, at his funeral, Tony Blair was there. Alistair Campbell, the former Director of Communications, ex-Minister Ed Balls, Ed Miliband, and current Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer. And so Kate is clearly going to be fine. Her endless promotion will no doubt continue. Over the last couple of years, she's had documentaries, books. She was made a member of the Order of British Empire. And you know what happens when people get a gong from the royal household, right? They become the establishment's puppet. Fact, you can't accept an award like an MBE and kick against the system. That's not how it works. So going back to what I said at the start, and that is most people are essentially good, but people are sick of being manipulated by the likes of Kate Garraway. Yes, we are. We're sick of it. We were forced to and coerced to be part of a lockdown and jab circus, and people are really just like so angry and unafraid to say it now. You know, it's been shoehorned into us from children to be kind, to say nothing if we can't say something nice. But sometimes, just sometimes, we have to break free from that mold and speak the truth, even if it makes us look bad. The truth sometimes does that. We just have to suck it up. And on that note, let's bring in Gemma with some UK headlines.
Keeping the commitment.
I love you guys.
Unbelievable.
24/7.
Listen to you every day, have for years.